Story 1. Reminder: the Epstein Files are not classified documents. This is not the JFK assassination or alien autopsies at Area 51. These records are no different from any other investigation, and they should be just as accessible, with the usual caveats such as protecting victims' identities. I say this because the government is acting as if there is a reason, other than the protection of wealthy offenders, to keep these records secret. Story 2. It is up to the media. If they drop it, and it will disappear into the ether. You can do all you want, but if the media decides not to cover it, it will not matter. Story 3. It only matters if Republican voters demand it. You cannot change Republican politicians without their own voters revolting. The same applies to Democratic voters and Democratic politicians. Story 4. Keep talking about it anywhere and everywhere. Be angry about it. Write to your representatives, call into news talk shows and mention it. Post about it. Just do not let the issue go. Story 5. I do not understand the world of journalism or investigative reporting. I do not get why those with access to elected officials do not work together to hold them accountable. If one reporter in the press pool does not get their question answered, when another is called upon, they should reiterate the question or call out the inadequate response. This is another instance where journalists act in their own interest, and the demand for holding politicians accountable is measured only by votes. No wonder representatives think they can say or do whatever they want. Story 6. Keep making Donald Trump talk about it, downplay it, and dismiss it. He is just making himself look more guilty. I have even seen voters of the Make America Great Again movement now starting to think he is involved. Do not let it rest. This cover-up should be spoken about constantly. The media should not drop it and should keep questioning him on it. Story 7. By being media literate. The last few days have seen multiple attempts to move the news cycle along, and there will be dozens more over the next days and weeks. The Trump administration is trying to manipulate liberal focus by doing things to cause outrage in other areas. Examples: the commentator on Fox News encouraging the right to reclaim the word Nazi. This triggers liberals for obvious reasons and piggybacks on the Elon Musk salute controversy. Republicans blaming George Floyd on Joe Biden. This is a strategic choice because this event captured intense focus and caused an international protest movement. Escalating the Chelsea Trophy story. The liberal media picked up on this, and attempts were made to make it a bigger story than the Epstein case. Stories that validate liberals in an inconsequential way. These are designed to make you feel like you've already won for the day, so you don't need to act. No, we can concentrate on more than one thing at a time. Actually, many people cannot. That is why simple messaging from populists is so worryingly effective. Even for those who can, you still have more impact by giving one thing your full focus. The attention economy is real. People do not have time for in-depth attention to every story, so it's all about general optics. What looks more serious when glancing at headlines? A dozen different stories that are vaguely negative about Trump, or Epstein everywhere you look? Give your attention to the latter. Upvote, comment, visit the original articles. Give it your clicks. Media wants money. Money means clicks. Thinking you're smart enough to give everything attention is falling for their propaganda and congratulating yourself for it. But these stories are bad about Trump. Yes, that's the point. They want liberals angry about other things to distract from core issues. These things don't look bad to core Trump voters, so it does not hurt his standing. They use different tactics on conservatives, whipping up fear on other matters, appealing to moral decency, delaying promises of future credible information, saying we're going to cover everything but this, and because Daddy said so. But the Trump administration has done this other really serious thing, and it deserves our attention. It does. ICE agents disappearing people, constitutions being trampled. These are appalling. But Epstein is the key scandal to fracture the Trump government and end all their heinous acts. Epstein damages Trump's approval with voters and those who support and protect him. Make this a scandal bigger than Watergate. Do not stop talking about it. Do not get bored, frustrated, or hopeless and move on. Be persistent. Trump will not take it away from you. Story 8. What pressure can we apply without causing riots? I believe the government defending and supporting sexual predators warrants protest. Story 9. Put the word out that Jeffrey Epstein was in an unidentified flying object hovering over the grassy knoll. That should consolidate the troop base. Story 10. Don't stop talking about it. Ask all of your friends and family who are supporters of Donald Trump why they support a man who raped a 13-year-old girl. Ask them why Donald Trump campaigned on releasing the list, and why they are now claiming that one does not exist, but if it does, it was created by Joe Biden. Ask them why members of the Republican Party voted against releasing the list. If I were in a house and every room smelled like smoke and all the smoke detectors were going off, I would assume there is a fire in the house, not blame all the smoke detectors for being wrong. Story 11. Keep calling representatives. Do not fall for the cover-up news regarding Joe Biden's automated signature device. Keep mentioning it on social media and tagging representatives. Vote the supporters and defenders of child exploitation out in the midterm elections. Story 12. They have made it clear that they do not care how much pressure you put on them, so you solve the problem at the midterm elections. That is the only way. You cannot force them to care, but you can replace them with people who do. Story 13. Besides calling your representatives, get a virtual private network and create a new Twitter account. Keep posting pictures of Trump and Epstein in conservative feeds, including Truth Social. If images do not work, post blocks of text that repeat EPSTIN. He hates that, and it is already showing. For your information, the Epstein Files are not going to be the big mind-blowing discovery. They were used as a way to manipulate uninformed conservative voters. Story 14. Still do not understand the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. She is the first person in history to be sentenced for sex trafficking to no one. Story 15. If MAGA is anything, it is a cult, and cult leaders are always considered right. Every mistake is interpreted as an achievement. This will only increase his support in every faction. Story 16. One of the important things is to not forget about the issue and move on to something else quickly. It seems that these days, no matter what the issue is, there is an uproar for a week, maybe a few weeks at best. Then something else happens, the press stops talking about the original issue, the public forgets about it, and moves on. Story 17. Primary Republicans who protect pedophiles encourage and engage with Make America Great Again supporters on this issue. We all agree, and I dislike how they feel about my friends and neighbors, but we can definitely come together on this. Story 18. Keep mentioning it. He's all about ratings and polls. He looks up the trending statistics from search engines. Make sure that he cannot avoid hearing the name Epstein and Donald J. Trump. Story 19. Vote out every Republican who voted against releasing the files. This seems like a good start since they all voted against releasing them. Story 20. We just have to keep talking about it. Share information, sign petitions, and support people who are trying to find the truth. If we stay quiet, nothing will happen. Keep the pressure on. Story 21. I consider anyone who voted for a person openly quoted as considering Jeffrey Epstein a friend who likes them young to be an Epstein voter. Drive the Epstein voter and those who maintain friendly relations with them out of polite society. A suitable statement might be, you wanted someone who ran a modeling company associated with Jeffrey Epstein to be the most powerful, visible, and influential person in the world. This is appalling. If you get within 100 yards of a child, the authorities should be called. Get out of my life. Once the voting base is driven out of polite society, their politicians will lose the will to keep it covered up. Story 22. Make sure his followers read the post he just put up. It says he no longer wants their support if they believe the files are real. Story 23. Call your congressional representatives and senators. Yes, that does make a difference. You would be shocked at how few calls they actually receive, and what percentage of those calls come only from people aged 65 and older. Tell them very clearly that they need to support releasing the lists. You will vote them out if they do not. No wiggle room, no deals. Any attempt to hide the list equals a cover-up of child sexual abuse. Story 24. I have half a mind to run for Congress on the sole platform that I will be a machine that tries to get these files to the American people. I make no other promises on any other issue. All I do is eat, sleep, and try to get these files released. Personally, I think it is that big of a deal. Story 25. File a Freedom of Information Act request. Mobilize public opinion. Partner with groups like the American Civil Liberties Union, Judicial Watch, Electronic Frontier Foundation, or National Security Archive. Contact congressional representatives. Pursue legal action. Use whistleblower channels. Maintaining pressure requires patience and persistence. Government disclosure rarely happens voluntarily. It is forced through legal, political, and media leverage. Story 26. What I have now verified is that any issue a Make America Great Again Republican brings up means nothing to them. They have no stance. Story 27. The Department of Justice under Donald Trump is never going to release anything related to Epstein that has his name on it. That is Cult Culture 101 and Basic Fascism 102. If, by some miracle, such documents are released by someone else, all the leader has to say are the words fake news. The talking points email will be out so fast your head will spin. Story 28. It's my sincere hope that our country will find common ground and stop allowing the power, money, and control crowd to manipulate the narrative. Believe all survivors. That's a start. Stop contemplating what the manipulation machine is presenting in the media. Start asking yourself why the narrative is coming from perpetrators, not the survivors of criminal elements. We know these people will do anything to stop us from winning. After all, we are used to having our voices marginalized. Expect the worst and hope for the best. Story 29. Step 1. Start a petition. Step 2. Get millions to sign it. Step 3. Accidentally misplace the petition in the same filing cabinet as Epstein's client list. Step 4. Watch as it vanishes into the same interdimensional Bermuda Triangle where accountability goes to die. Story 30. There is no pressuring the current members of the Republican Party to do the right thing. They laugh at protests and thrive on making people unhappy and upset. Story 31. I have 0% hope that anything will ever come of it. If anything was going to happen, it would have happened 5 years ago. Whatever list, logs, documentation, and other records may or may not have existed have either been lost or altered many times by now. 3 different administrations have had access to any information about the case, and all 3 did nothing. 2 of those administrations were led by someone mentioned hundreds of times in the publicly available documents. Things have become so bad politically that I would not trust any releases from either side. I know they would only target those on the opposite side of whatever administration starts charging. The only way I would ever trust anything is if a third-party person leaked the information, like a journalist who finds a victim with a folder full of information the government has not touched yet. But that seems unlikely. I do not care which old, wealthy men go down for it on either side. I just want justice for those who were wronged. I do not think that will ever happen. Story 32. We could not pressure them into not building a concentration camp. What makes you think you are going to pressure them into anything? Story 33. If everyone was pressuring them to do it, they would release a revised version to protect those involved. We need a leak from a reputable and courageous person. Story 34. I don't think there is anything the average person can do. It will take an insider to leak the data, in my opinion. Story 35. Sure, they release it. But what stops it from looking like this? Suspect 1. You really thought? Or, on the 15th of September, did you really think we went to X location? There's going to be a sea of redactions. Story 36. That opportunity ended when Donald Trump was reelected. He is implicated in those files, and one of the main reasons he ran again, in my opinion, was to sweep everything under the rug along with his other convictions. Story 37. We need someone to go on the air and say that Donald Trump is not rich, famous, or attractive enough to be on the Epstein list. We will have an unredacted version of the list available on Truth Social the next day with tabs for every time Donald Trump's name is mentioned. Story 38. This is something that both sides can support. I know it sounds unpleasant, but call your racist uncle or your blue-haired niece and start a conversation about it. We can be united on this. Story 39. With this group, only a change of government will make a difference. Donald Trump, the Heritage Foundation, and Peter Thiel do not care about you. They do not care about the rule of law. They will continue reshaping the country until they are removed from power. The release of the Epstein Files will not stop them, but it might raise distrust among their supporters and slow them down. The Project 2025 goals are nearly half complete. There are no consequences for them to suppress the Epstein case, and they have no intention of slowing down. Story 40. To quote En Vogue, never gonna get it, never gonna get it. Never gonna get it, never gonna get it. Never gonna get it, never gonna get it. Never gonna get it. Never gonna get it, 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 never gonna get it. Story 41. Call and write your elected officials every week. You call and send emails to make it clear your votes will go in another direction come midterm if they do not take action on this. Story 42. Keep the message that Donald Trump abuses children current on all social media platforms. Repost every story you see. Contact your congressional representatives and let them know this story cannot be whitewashed like all of Donald Trump's other transgressions. Contact media outlets and talk show hosts and let them know they need to discuss this issue. Make this a central theme in all future organized protests. Most importantly, vote Donald Trump and his enablers out of office. This is not acceptable and we do not have to tolerate it. It is up to all of you to do your part. Story 43. I am calling my representative and leaving a strong voicemail condemning their actions of voting along party lines to protect criminals and demanding their immediate resignation every day. Morning, noon, and night. Story 44. The number one way is to convince conservative members of Congress that they will lose their seats if the files are not released. Then they can impeach Donald Trump. Story 45. I do not believe he would keep detailed records of his crimes. That seems very unwise. This is not Hollywood. The risk of getting caught with a life sentence and a full set of evidence far outweighs the blackmail angle. Flight logs do not prove crimes because we know numerous people have been to that island and did not commit crimes. Story 46. By voting for candidates who truly care about the rule of law, decency, and protecting children. Not Republicans. Story 47. There is no mystery. We have the flight logs and the phone book. There are no tapes of William Jefferson Clinton and a 12-year-old. I do not know what people think is supposed to exist. Story 48. Keep bringing it up. People keep mentioning Brock Allen Turner, the rapist. When you mention him, also mention that Republicans promised to release the Epstein Files, claimed they were on Bondi's desk, then said it was nothing, and then voted unanimously not to release the files. Story 49. Shame works. Let conservatives know they are supporting Nazi pedophiles. You know what Americans do to Nazis. Story 50. Anything that is released will be altered. They already did that to the video. There is no way they will release something that will hurt them. Story 51. I think former President Donald Trump says the list does not exist because he had the list destroyed. But does anyone have a copy? Story 52. How foolish this is. Photos of all the players have been available for years. Yet people still question. America is afloat in greed, corruption, and hypocrisy. Story 53. We should coordinate a day where everyone floods their social media with that infamous picture of Jeffrey and Donald hugging and smiling at the camera. Make it unforgettable and impossible to ignore for him. He is clearly bothered by it. Story 54. I think all the Democrats have to do is say, I will vote to release the Epstein Files, since my opponent did not, and then actually vote on them. The Democrats will probably do well in the midterm elections. Granted, they will face a veto from Donald Trump, but that might only make things worse for him since he said that he would release them. Story 55. Call him a pedophile. Keep bringing every topic back to the Epstein Files. However, do not forget the Medicare and Medicaid cuts they just made and the aggressive unconstitutional immigration and customs enforcement raids. Story 56. Calling and writing your representatives is effective. Written correspondence requires a response by law, making it especially effective in jamming up staff in offices. However, Nothing is more effective than continuing to stoke the fires on various major social media platforms. People increasingly look for information there, and it has the capacity to galvanize attention like no other form of media. This can be used for good or evil, but it is undoubtedly a powerful force. Story 57. Well, conservatives are very keen on the Second Amendment. Maybe an open mind should be kept and it given a try. Story 58. Anything they release cannot be trusted. The only thing you can do is vote these individuals out of Congress in 2026. Story 59. Aside from calling Congress, I believe creating and sharing memes on the topic is effective. One way the group has propagated simple ideas is through memes, flooding their algorithm with these ideas. Story 60. At this point, anything they release will be suspect. There is no way this administration will release anything with current Republican members' names on it. Maybe they would include a few deceased Republicans for the appearance of transparency, but it would be full of Democrats and their allies. Honestly, now that Donald Trump has said it was all written by James Comey, Joe Biden, and Barack Obama, they cannot release anything without damaging their reputation one way or another. We need a government insider or anonymous source to hack the system and publish everything online. Story 61. You cannot anymore. Sure, you can keep complaining about it, but the reality is that the government does whatever it wants because it has a monopoly on violence. Unless you are able to magically make law enforcement stop killing innocent people and refuse to do their job, there is really nothing you can do. Story 62. I think we should protest in their neighborhoods, as close to their houses as legally possible, and spread signs everywhere saying, "Release Epstein Files." The more it is in their faces, the more likely they will give in. Story 63. You ask a competent team of hackers, the ones with 2 keyboards. The people in the list and files will not release them, plain and simple. Epstein was not just a pedophile gang. It was a power and money gang, also known as all the top brass. Story 64. Compile our own list and assume any politician against its release is involved. Start asking them directly why they are involved too. Story 65. It's a nice thought to pressure governments to do the right thing. The issue is that governments, by default, are like vaults. They are regimes in sheep's clothing everywhere, not just here. It may be an extreme thought, but consider the comments. Representatives do nothing. Why? Because they are on payrolls. People on payrolls do what they are told. Unless you can separate yourself with wealth from the masses, we usually cannot pressure governments. Sorry to burst this question's balloon. I didn't want to. Story 66. Republicans in Congress fear only one thing more than Donald Trump: their own voters. Republican voters must commit to not voting in the midterm elections unless the documents are released. Alternatively, they can go on social media and commit to joining Elon Musk's America Party unless the documents are released. Republican members of Congress need to feel they are in danger of losing their jobs if they continue to support Donald Trump on this issue. Make them believe it. Story 67. Honestly, the best way is to appeal to the constituency at this point, especially if someone who votes Republican holds this promise in high importance. You probably cannot convince them to vote Democrat in 2 years, but at the very least, make them feel so disillusioned that they become apathetic non-voters. Gain some non-Republican seats in 2 years, and you can probably bring this topic back to the table. Strange as it sounds, I am somewhat rooting for Elon Musk to pursue his third-party efforts. If anything, it has more potential to split the Republican voter base than affect Democrats. Definitely could use a Ross Perot 2.0. Story 68. He is letting food designated for the poor rot in a warehouse, taking Medicaid away from some of the poorest people in this country. Do you think he is going to release the confirmation that he is a pedophile? Story 69. How will you pressure them? Your representatives do not have a reason to listen to you since you will just vote for your party representative over the others anyway. Protests do not work since, again, no one needs to listen to you. Story 70. We are curious to see it. I confess my own curiosity, but does that mean we are entitled to have evidence released? I want to know about senior year 72 development. That doesn't mean I get to know more than what Maverick released. Story 71. Ask them to put forward an actual bill, not sneak it in on one about cryptocurrency regulatory steps they knew was not passing in the first place. Then perhaps actually think about what they want to release onto a public portal instead of absolutely everything, before everyone who views it ends up watching inappropriate and illegal videos. Story 72. I was shocked yesterday to hear from a strong supporter of Donald Trump that his refusal and the complicity of the Attorney General point to Trump's guilt. There seems to be much more attention on Jeffrey Epstein's death, but even this person does not believe Epstein died, thinking he is now hiding on his private island and that the suicide was only a cover story. Why some of the other controversies involving Donald Trump did not bother them is unclear, and now this is somewhat strange, but who knows what broke the camel's back. I assume being a pedophile must be the line you should not cross. Story 73. You are an idiot. That is like calling the chief executive officer of your company and telling him he will be paying you a 20% raise. Story 74. That regime should not be your government. You need to apply much more pressure than just some files. Story 75. Elections matter. People voted for a child rapist, and now he is the child rapist in chief. Ultimately, enough of the Epstein files are public already. Donald Trump is implicated extensively, including direct accusations of child sexual abuse. I do not know who you think you will convince, but it is already out in the open that he abuses children, and they still support him. There is not much that can be done about that. That is democracy in action. Story 76. To keep pressure on the government to release the Epstein files, you can support legislative actions and demand transparency from elected officials. Also, amplify the issue through media and social media to raise public awareness and push for full disclosure. Story 77. You would have to completely dismantle the Central Intelligence Agency because that is who has anything meaningful from Epstein. The last president to propose that idea was shot in the head in Dallas. Story 78. We could all encourage everyone to write or say, release the Epstein files in as many places as possible, as often as possible, both online and offline. Profile bios, email headers, comment sections, direct messages, memes, usernames, in-game names, server names, file names, billboards, banners, graffiti, catchphrases, inside books, on the sidewalk and street using chalk or paint, on random scraps of paper, on receipts, in banknotes, in school notes, advertisements, birthday cards, gravestones, changed names, bumper stickers, doormats, labels, checks, in conversation by text or voice, as a goodbye and greeting, past school notes, bathroom, stalls, whenever someone is in front of a live camera or audience, green screens, digital device backgrounds to start and end emails or letters, in unexpected places like the bottoms of shoes and underwear, on rocks, over broadcasts, donations read aloud during live streams, written on birthday cakes, as part of gender reveal party reveals, and more. Sprays, GIFs, and signs in video games like Team Fortress 2, Minecraft, Roblox, and SoundCloud songs and famous music, on presents, tattoos, titles of unrelated things, as names for pets and objects, as signs, shouts, or chants at any protest or rally. It is low cost for everyone who participates, funny, and it will be fun to mass troll the elites. Story 79. Who cares? Play out the scenario in your mind. The Epstein files come out, we did it. And oh, they are 10 times worse than anyone thought. Videos, sworn testimony, all ironclad and irrefutable. Amazing. All the world's most powerful people, and we have them all on camera in high definition doing heinous things. Then what? Nothing. As usual. No consequences, just, oh my goodness, my pearls. Anyway, next news cycle, please. And before you say, that kind of thinking is exactly why nothing gets done. Please note that all of this nothing happens to people in power situation was going on long before I came around. So I reject the blame for these thoughts. I didn't even exist when humanity decided this is how we do things. Story 80. Legally, we could have a general strike, withhold taxes, call our representatives daily, and vote out all of the representatives who do not vote to unseal them in the midterm elections. Story 81. Donald J. Trump is accused of child abuse. Republican Party supporters are accused of supporting child abuse. Participate in your Second Amendment rights today. Invest in ammunition, armor, medical supplies, and information. Call your local representative and demand the death penalty for all involved in human trafficking. Story 82. I don't get it. We know T and E were friends. There are many pictures of them together and video of T laughing about E liking them young. So a flight log is going to be some sort of smoking gun? Now we got him? Story 83. I think it is a lost cause. The only way is for the other Republican members of Congress to break from the party. The Democratic Party will be ignored. Story 84. Republican and independent voters need to contact their senators and congressional representatives and tell them that if they do not release the list unredacted, they will not vote for them and will actively campaign for someone else. With supporters of the Make America Great Again movement and former President Donald Trump holding significant power at the moment, I doubt the list will be released until they are out of office in roughly 3 years, unless someone in the government with access leaks it. Story 85. It will never happen, unfortunately. It is a bipartisan cover-up. There are too many people at risk. The same applies to the Diddy situation. I believe we have no control over any of this. The wealthy play by different rules. Story 86. Just keep the automated accounts active that are posting messages like this to the main page. At least that appears to be your strategy. Story 87. The media thrives on our engagement. We need to keep the conversation going and continue digging into details, especially Epstein's apparent Mossad affiliation. Either they will not release the files because doing so could ruin billionaires' lives, expose our greatest ally for blackmailing and influencing Americans, or both. Story 88. No need. They dug their own grave so deep. Their own people will turn on them now. This administration went full retarded. Thank God. Story 89. Press your representatives to continually raise the issue whenever possible. Vote for people who will encourage their colleagues to vote for it or pressure them to refuse, letting the issue remain unresolved. Story 90. You do not have much power other than keeping it in the public eye, which honestly is more than if we had another president who seemingly wanted to hide it. Story 91. It does not matter any longer. Too much time has elapsed. We cannot trust whatever they release, even if they do. Story 92. There is nothing you, I, or anyone can do to make the government release them or convince them to do so. Story 93. Because of the hysteria over some of the, let's call them hostesses, Epstein kept the island stocked with underage girls. The accepted term now is children. The previous term is considered offensive and unacceptable. The hostesses were not chained to beds with lines of customers out the door. Most of them were of legal age. They were pampered with fancy clothes, food, alcohol, drugs, full hair, nail, makeup, and other aesthetic services. They spent time with rich and powerful men and women and were paid. The island had dozens of staff to serve the guests everything from food to entertainment. Top-name musical acts were brought in. Celebrities, politicians, and extremely wealthy people all attended fabulous parties and resort activities such as golf, sailing, diving, swimming, and other private activities. The names on the list cover both major political parties and the richest, most secretive, and most powerful people in the world. Because of the hysteria over young girls being abused and the fact it's being covered up, even appearing on the list is a huge liability. Even if you just went to play golf or otherwise relax, the blame for the extracurricular activities of some guests falls on your shoulders. Of course, they are going to deny, defend, and distract. It was a terrible situation, wrong on many levels, and justice will likely be denied. Story 94. Our best chance to get them released is probably if someone either hacks the Department of Justice or a leaker or whistleblower lets them out. It is very unlikely someone with actual authority does it, since those people are all aligned with former President Trump, and he is on the list. Story 95. This is the third administration to have information about him since his latest arrest. Do not forget he was previously let off without consequences and only received a minor reprimand during 2 other presidents' administrations. This list will never be released. Story 96. Here are all of the Epstein files that have either been leaked or released. Verified court documents are available. Trump is on page 85 or PDF page 80 in the unredacted Black Book. Trump's name is circled. The circled individuals are those involved in the trafficking ring according to the person who originally released the book. These people constitute the list. Flight logs of Epstein are also available. Additional Epstein information includes a court document alleging involvement of Epstein and Trump with a 13-year-old minor. Some people consider this claim a hoax. Katie's testimony is available on video. Other information about Trump includes an admission to inappropriate behavior toward 14 to 15-year-old girls on a radio show. Trump has also made statements about a promise to his daughter regarding dating age limits. Allegations exist that Trump's modeling agency was part of Jeffrey Epstein's pipeline. Story 97. Keep raising public awareness, contacting your representatives, supporting investigative journalism, and demanding transparency through petitions or Freedom of Information Act requests. Public pressure matters. Story 98. Memory. The Epstein Files are not secret documents. This is not the John F. Kennedy assassination or alien autopsies in Area 51. The records are no different from any other investigation and should be just as accessible, with the usual limitations such as protecting the identity of victims. I say this because the government is acting as if there is some reason other than protecting wealthy older pedophiles to keep these records secret. Story 99. Never stop demanding it. Never let up. Share stories on social media. Call your local leaders. Do whatever it takes. You are one person, but you are enough to get the ball rolling. Story 100. Call your representative every single day. Their phone number is public. The general rule is that for every one person who calls about an issue, 1,000 other people care about it but do not bother to call. Call their office every day and make sure you mention that this is an issue you are considering when voting. Story 101. Replace members of the Republican Party who support Donald Trump at all levels of government, and make the rest fear removal if they remain loyal. Story 102. Call out the Republicans who are voting against revealing it. Look up what district they represent and spread the word. Story 103. It has been 6 years and essentially 3 administrations. They are all committed to it. If we ever get anything, it will be so heavily redacted or stripped that it will not even be useful. Anyone who had any faith in this thing happening after more than a year was mistaken. Story 104. Why are we assuming the files have not already been destroyed? Whatever is released will not be accurate. Donald Trump and his allies have already been removed. The only issue is how to make it not obvious that the top people have been erased and possibly how to keep the others who were there at the same time quiet. Story 105. It is really easy. Democrats have to show up, vote, and win the elections. Then they can release the files. By then, all those elderly people will have passed away. Story 106. It is inevitable that the pressure will naturally remain. You cannot begin your entire political career embracing conspiracy theories and cultivate a base centered around those theories, then try to distance yourself from them when you are part of it. Donald Trump began his political career demanding to see Barack Obama's birth certificate and built his base on that foundation. Now he is deeply involved in serious allegations and is trying to claim there is nothing there. That approach is unlikely to work. I do not think the issue will go away, and he risks losing those supporters. He was elected to drain the swamp. While many of his followers do not mind if he is part of the establishment as long as he takes strong action against certain groups, there is a core group that takes this very seriously, and he is upsetting them. Continue reminding everyone about this to maintain pressure. Story 107. Answer. You can maintain as much pressure as you wish. You cannot make a fascist government do anything they do not want to do without toppling the fascist government. It is simply not going to happen until the felons are removed from power. Good luck. Story 108. A call to your member of Congress is not going to do it. A petition is not going to do it. Complaining online is not going to do it. A Freedom of Information Act request backed by a team of good lawyers is your best bet. I am sure various media outlets are already working on it. Story 109. There is a picture of Pam Bondi with Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump. Once she saw there was evidence of her presence among hundreds of others, she shut it down. Story 110. Keep it loud. Keep it public. Every time they try to bury it, we dig it back up. Talk about it. Meme it. Post it. Pressure your representatives. They hate one thing more than exposure, momentum. Story 111. There is little that the public can do to change the minds of the controlling party in the United States Congress and the United States Senate. Story 112. They are going to create a fake file and release it. It will contain some true information, perhaps about Bill Clinton, to make it more credible, but nothing about Donald Trump. Mark my words. Story 113. Nothing. I am going to be real pessimistic here, but there is nothing I could suggest that would work without breaking Reddit's rules. They have all the power, all the authority, and thousands of obedient, armed men to enforce their will. They care more about titles, class, and wealth than law or morality, not to mention millions more. It is like mice protesting that the tiger is eating them. The only way to win against these people is to turn them against each other. For that, you need divergent interests. But that is the problem. No matter their hypocritical statements to the contrary, the interests of your rulers are the same in this specific case. Story 114. We are already losing the conservative group on this issue. There have been a few things over the years that both political sides have agreed on for a short time. Then the right-wing members receive their talking points from their leaders, which causes them to distance themselves from the left. We need them to stay focused on this. Story 115. In hindsight, it was never going to happen and it never will. The Democratic Party had plenty of opportunities to take action on this, but they did not. Now that the Republican Party is in charge, they are ignoring the issue and pretending it never existed, claiming the Democratic Party made it up to frame them. Too many members of the Republican Party are involved for the information to be released. Probably fewer members of the Democratic Party are involved, but many of their donors are on the list, so it is not going to happen. I will watch the situation unfold, but I have no expectations of ever getting anything concrete from it. Story 116. This is an easy one. You need to get rich, like billions of dollars rich. Buy all the media outlets that control the information bubble that supporters of the former president live in. Then replace the propaganda with actual truth and facts in a way that will not bruise their egos or crush the identity they built around the former president. I said easy, but I meant impossible. We are only a couple of days away from supporters moving on and forgetting it was ever a problem. Story 117. They are not going to tell on themselves. I gave up the idea of change a long time ago and just live my life. Story 118. Why can't we just keep responding to everything with release the files? Like they did with, but her emails? Story 119. Never going to happen. It is just political theater now. If it were so damning or fake, the Democrats would have released it. If Donald Trump could release it to hurt the Clintons, he would release it. Both parties have had control over it, and neither released it. It was a political talking point when Joe Biden was president, and it is one again now. Neither party wants to release it because both parties and their allies are involved. Donald Trump will take some hits, but his base will never leave him, and the Democrats get to use it in the midterm elections. Story 120. Start calling Trump a liberal for not releasing the files the same way Joe Biden did not. Start calling Trump a liberal supporter who is protecting Hillary Clinton, whose husband is probably also on the list. Make his supporters think he is protecting liberals, and they will demand he release the files to own the liberals. Republicans will demand it if they think it will hurt the Democrats, so portray Trump as part of the political establishment. Reverse psychology works on toddlers. These people are toddlers. People should more emphatically portray Trump as the biggest perceived enemy of MAGA supporters. An ally to Democrats. Story 121. The only way is if his closest and most influential followers demand it. Any Democrat or public voter has no say in him. Story 122. I'm unable to assist with that request. Story 123. I am very glad you were putting so much effort into releasing the names when the list first came out. Story 124. Keep talking about it. Keep asking about it. Maintain focus on the issue until the files are released. Story 125. What exactly do you think they are hiding? They could release a list of everyone that Jeffrey Epstein ever had any dealings with, but that does not necessarily mean that any of those people were involved in sex trafficking. There is no reason to think that Epstein kept any kind of records or evidence of himself and others engaging in illegal activities. The reality is that there is most likely nothing of real significance they are hiding, and releasing his contact list would only create numerous witch hunts. Story 126. Nobody will ever release them. They have probably already been destroyed. There is only one problem left, and that is his accomplice who is waiting in jail to be released if this was all a hoax. Story 127. Just assume everyone in power is on the list. They should be innocent until proven guilty, but instead, make them prove they're not on the list. Pressure those who aren't on it to make the list public so their reputation can be saved. Seriously, who cares if Clinton and Trump are on it? You already know they have serious issues. One cannot run again and the other will not. It isn't about them. It's about the next ones who are on it. Yes, from both parties. Yes, one is worse, but let's not kid ourselves. Being on the list isn't partisan, though it's probable at least 80% are right-wing. Story 128. Just keep talking about them. Vote out anyone who voted to keep the files under lock and key. Eventually, the government will cave or someone will hack them. Story 129. What makes you think the government has cared since everyone sorted themselves into blindly following political parties? Story 130. Oh, we do not have to do anything. Supporters of Donald Trump who genuinely believe he is not a pedophile or rapist will do all the work. They are crazy, if you have not noticed. Story 131. Laughing my ass off. Pressure? There is no pressure and there never was. It should be painfully obvious to everyone that these people do not care about what the people think, need, or feel about anything. Story 132. Keep it in the news cycle. Donald Trump does not do anything but watch Fox News, so keep it in the news cycle. Donald Trump always chickens out, so he will do it. Story 133. Purchase billboard space in every population center in the United States where a member of the House of Representatives voted against releasing the Epstein Files. Display the representative's picture and name with the statement, "Voted against releasing Epstein Files," and keep it there until after the next election. Story 134. National Public Radio did a full story on this topic this morning. They discussed the backlash against refusing to release the files. They covered 3 or 4 different theories that the Make America Great Again crowd was upset about. They presented the whole news story without once mentioning that the major concern is that former President Donald Trump is involved. They skipped the most important part of the story. It cannot be a coincidence that they completely ignored the lead story on the day the Senate is set to discuss funding cuts to National Public Radio. National Public Radio lacks courage. Story 135. If you are a person who behaves inappropriately, are you going to let records of your actions become public? No. The public will be misled, and they will find the next big issue to focus on and distract everyone with. Story 136. What is the big deal with the Epstein Files? Do you need a supervillain to stay interested? Do you think your neighbor is on the list? This is a strange obsession with too many people, in my opinion. Story 137. Hopefully, we can influence the news cycle by discussing it and not moving on. Even if it is November and there is still no progress, keep the pressure on. Donald Trump will crack even more, as he already is, by turning on his base and calling them idiots. He cannot help but speak, which will be his undoing. Story 138. Smells like a cover-up. Today, the federal prosecutor who worked on both Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's criminal cases was fired. Story 139. Pawns do not make demands of the king. He does not care about his supporters, as we tried to warn repeatedly. He used them to escape jail for his crimes, and now that he is in power, he is only interested in helping his friends. Story 140. The best way to keep pressure on the government is to call your local House and Senate representatives. Even if they do not respond to you, the fact that you reached out is noted, and they pay attention to the numbers and the issues their constituents care about. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.